Back in 1988, Konami released a cyberpunk-themed graphic adventure game called Snatcher. It was written and directed by Hideo Kojima. Originally, Snatcher was released for the PC 8801 and the MSX2. It was later remade for the PC Engine, the PlayStation 1, the Sega CD, and finally, the Sega Saturn. The Sega CD version is the only one to date that made it to the United States. Snatcher became a huge hit in Japan, and even though it sold poorly over here in the US, it's still known as an undeniable classic that demands to be on anyone's top 10 list of the greatest adventure games ever created. A lot of what can be said about Snatcher has already been covered in multiple magazines and many different videos. It's widely praised and heavily collected. But the second game in the Snatcher franchise has basically been forgotten by the world, and this is a travesty that needs to be corrected. Balance has to be found. April 27th, 1999, Japan got a non-canon reimagining of Snatcher exclusively for the MSX console called Super Deformed Snatcher, or SD Snatcher for short. Super Deformed is a popular art style where characters have big heads and small bodies. SD Snatchers keep portions of the original story, but it also contains a large amount of new content, so for its 27th anniversary, we're taking the time out to celebrate its history and its innovations. Super Deformed Snatcher spent over 15 years untranslated until the Dutch group called Oasis attempted a translation. They later admitted that they didn't modify the code of the game to adapt to the English language. What that means is if they had a dialogue string in Japanese that consists of 24 characters, and when it was translated into English would contain 140 characters, they couldn't extend the dialog box to accommodate for the extra space. This led to the original text being chopped up to fit in the limited space. They estimated that their interpretation is only 40% of the original script. That fact alone left a sour taste with most people who wanted to try the original game in all of its full glory. So finally, in the year 2014, a new translation was released by a different group going by the name Project Melancholia. They spent years reverse engineering the game so they could make the definitive version. They translated the entire script. They modified the game's code so they could work without the required sound chip. They made graphical updates, fixed existing glitches and other bugs. They also found cut areas that were left out of the original release, so they fixed them up and they made them playable for the first time. Since Super Deformed Snatcher is a JRPG, Gillian can now collect experience points for his rank, defense, speed, and strength. The system is more complex than other RPGs of this time. Each stat has their own experience bar, so depending on how the battles play out, you'll be able to level up certain traits. The enemies are viewable on the overworld, so if you have enough skill, you'll be able to avoid any unwanted battles. The first-person turn-based battle system is rather unique. The only games we can think of that even come close to it is Parasite Eve and maybe Vagrant Story. The way it's set up is an enemy is placed on a grid system and you can target any part of it. It also has an early form of auto battle, which your petite metal can fight for you. The strategies are endless. If you have a foe that keeps shooting you in the face, then attack its eyes and its accuracy will fall. Are your attacks barely having an effect? Shoot its armor. Want to flee a battle? Cripple a leg or the wheel. If you're tired of extra enemies joining, shoot the antenna that's sending out the distress signal. Another nifty part is if you destroy an enemy's gun and eyes, it will be defenseless and self-destruct no matter what its HP is. There are over 10 different guns in this game, with 3 main characteristics: range, speed, and type. Range is how many blocks the attack will cover. Speed factors in if the attack can be dodged, and type is what kind of attacks it will do. Every gun has its own ammo that needs purchased. and every time you use the gun, your skill will increase, affecting its overall stats. Items in this game are called options and consist of bombs, grenades, mines, and other one-use weapons to aid you in a fight. You can toss chaff grenades to block an enemy calling for backup, use circuit killers to immobilize enemies, and run for the hills. Drugs are used as healing items. Junker's High heals a set amount of any lost HP. Neutralizers cancel out bioweapon attacks, and gyros are used to cure paralysis. Don't let the art style fool you into thinking this is Snatcher for kids. There are graphic death scenes, cults, lobotomies, and much more. For a JRPG to have an adult theme like this is way ahead of its time. The normal RPG storyline was a cliché group of adventurers go on a quest for a king to save the world, not a dark, gritty sci-fi thriller. This game was voted as the best MSX game ever made back in 2004, but we feel this game transcends the MSX and should be known as one of the greatest RPGs ever made. Now, many players have criticized the amount of grinding, but when compared to Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy games released around the same time, this is a moot point. In closing, Super Deformed Snatcher has spent 27 years being overlooked due to no translation and being locked on a rare console. But it's time we take a second look at this masterpiece JRPG. We here at GameFind promise you it's well worth the investment of time. So instead of spending $60 on a brand new game, why don't you do yourself a favor and give Super Deformed Snatcher a try? Thank you.